Would you rather? Hi, welcome to the recap room. In today's video, we'll be talking about a horror thriller film entitled Would You Rather? Warning, spoilers ahead. Iris is in a restaurant for a job interview. When asked why she's in that town, she answered that it's her home, and because of an accident, she has to take care of her brother. With her lack of experience, the interviewer says he can't promise anything, but will give her a call within the day. At the house, Raleigh, Iris' brother, is making breakfast while Iris is busy computing their budget. She mentions Dr. Barden thinks he can help them cut some of the treatment costs, so she needs to go to the clinic. Iris arrives at the clinic and helps a woman in a wheelchair get in. She then goes inside Dr. Barden's office and sees another man waiting inside. Dr. Barden introduces him as Shepard Lambrick. They then talk about her brother. Shepard tells her that his foundation has the ability to improve the situation. According to the doctor, the Lambricks have funded the building of clinics all over the world. Shepard stands and says his family believes in creating opportunities for people who just haven't received their fair share in life, like Iris and her brother. She then asks what they have to do. Shepard invites her to the dinner party they are hosting the night after. He adds there will be others joining too, those individuals that they'd like to help. Shepard explains that there will be a game and the winner will be taken care of. Bills, school, house, everything. She then asks what if she doesn't win. Shepard replies, "You just don't win." But Iris is still hesitant and asks Dr. Barden if the offer is legit. Dr. Barden assures her it is true because he himself has participated in that same event when he was in a similar position as Iris is now. He won, and the Lambrick Foundation came through on its promise. Iris reveals money would definitely help because his brother needs a bone marrow transplant. So she says she'll think it over, to which Shepard agrees. He hands her a card and asks her to RSVP by 8 p.m. that night if ever she decides to join. Vince Iris. He adds that if she wins, not only will she win money, but they can bypass anything list and locate a donor for them immediately.
It's VP by 8 o'clock tonight if you do decide to join us.
That night, Iris and her brother were about to eat dinner when the interviewer called and said she didn't get the job. We then see a flashback of Iris and her brother driving. Iris was disappointed that time because she wasn't a match and couldn't beat his donor. Back to the present, Iris looks for the card Shepard handed her and RSVPs to the event. The next day, Iris tells Raleigh that she's going out that night with her high school friends and asks if he'll be okay. He then replies he has everything he needs and could use some quiet. Iris gets dressed and a luxurious car picks her up from her house. On the way, she recalls her conversation with Raleigh. He asks if she's sick of their situation, but she comforts him, saying they'll get through it. Finally, Iris arrives at the house where she's welcomed by the butler and escorted to the waiting room. The butler formally introduces her as the 8th and final guest for the party. 2 of the other guests come to her and introduce themselves as Lucas and Carl. Carl says the foundation flew him from Seattle, while Lucas is from Iowa. They offer her a drink and introduce the other guests. The big guy is named Peter, a high-stake gambler from Vegas. The lady in the wheelchair is Linda. There's an Iraq vet named Travis. Then there's Amy and Conway, who has conspiracy theories about the Lambrick Foundation. Meanwhile, we see Dr. Barden is at the house having a drink. He's looking at some photographs and recalls his conversation with Shepard the other day. Dr. Barden tells Shepard that Iris is not right for the game. Shepard hands him an envelope and says he appreciates his discretion over the last couple of years. Shepard and his son Julian prepare themselves to welcome the guests. Shepard asks his son to be in his best behavior for the night. He reminds him that the integrity of the game requires minimal participation on their part, as his job as a Lambrick is simply to observe. He can interact with the guest and have a conversation with them, but he can't touch them. In the waiting room, Bevans asks the guests to leave all their possessions at the room. Phones, keys, etc. This way they wouldn't be distracted while playing the game. Conway protests, but they all eventually hand in their things. The butler then escorts them to the dining room and asks them to take their pre-assigned seats. Shepard and Julian join them at the table. Shepard welcomes everybody at the Lambrick house and introduces his son, Julian. Bevans and his team serve them with wine and a steak seared in foie gras. Iris raises her hand and says she's a vegetarian.
I'm a vegetarian.
However, Shepard says they don't have anything else in the kitchen. Linda curiously asks if she has always been a vegetarian, which she answers most of her life. Shepard interrupts the conversation and says that's the first opportunity for reward money. He offers 10,000 to Iris if she eats the steak and the foie gras. Initially, she refuses, but after some convincing from other guests, she did it anyway. Shepard mockingly says a lifetime of discipline and commitment was wiped away by a mere $10,000. Then he notices Conway isn't drinking wine and learns that he has been sober for 16 years. So Shepard offers him $10,000 to drink the glass of wine, but Conway refuses. He adds another offer of $50,000 reward if he chooses to drink the whole decanter of scotch. Although he doesn't want to, Conway eventually drinks the scotch. Shepard is obviously entertained by this. The dinner is over, and Shepard announces that the game has yet to officially begin. He tells them that they will play the famous children's game called Would You Rather. In each round, each player will be given a choice between two things, and whichever they choose, they must act upon. As the game continues with one dilemma after another, eliminating players as they go until there's a winner. Lucas asks how players are eliminated, to which Shepard answers if a player is no longer capable of continuing for whatever reason. Shepard adds that the dilemmas are timed, 15 seconds to make a decision or the player will be eliminated. He further explains that the game is all about decision making in its rawest form. This will ultimately prove whether they deserve the Foundation's help. He then gives everybody a chance to leave if they no longer wish to participate. Conway gets up and takes the money but sits down again. The game officially begins. Bevans come in with an equipment covered in black cloth, while Shepard reveals that he's a former agent with an MI5, an interrogator. Everyone is shocked when he later reveals that he's an electric machine. Conway stands up and leaves, but Shepard says the chance to flee has already been given. Conway protests, but Bevans shoots him, causing everybody to panic. The other contestants stand up, but they are forced to sit as Shepard's man points a gun at their head. Linda voices out her desire to go home, but Shepard says participation is no longer voluntary. Cal is the first to play. Bevans places a headpiece on Cal and Amy. Shepard asks him if he would rather electrocute himself or Amy. He has to press the blue button if he chooses himself and red for Amy. The timer starts. Cal presses the blue button and electrocutes himself. Next in line is Amy and Linda, and before Shepard finishes the question, she chooses the old lady over herself. Everybody's in disbelief. Linda faints, but Bevans wakes her up for her turn. The choice is between Linda and Peter this time. Both of them say they can't do it, but they have no choice but to continue, so Linda presses the button for Peter. Meanwhile, we see Dr. Barton gets his gun from a drawer and leaves his house. The game continues. It's now Travis' turn to choose between him and Lucas. He presses the blue button and Lucas is electrocuted. Iris asks if he's okay, and he assures her he can take one more, so when asked to choose, Lucas zaps himself instead of Iris. The headpiece is then transferred to Cal. Iris has to choose whether to electrocute herself or Cal for his second time. Cal prepared himself, but Iris chose herself. Round 1 is finally over. Shepard gives them some time to compose themselves while they prepare for the next round. Back to Dr. Barton. The scene shows his scarred face as he's driving somewhere. The players are left alone and they use this opportunity to form a plan to escape. But Julian re-enters and starts looking down on them, causing Travis to lose his cool. Julian, knowing that he's the soldier, thanks him for his service, then says opening his mouth was a big mistake. One of Bevans' men comes in with a roll of plastic, and Julian instructs him to cover the walls and the area around the table. Travis is obviously pissed, but Lucas tries to calm him and says they should stick together. Dr. Barton arrives at the place where the game is happening. He sneaks in the back and climbs up the wall. Shepard returns and the second round begins. This time, they are given 30 seconds to make their decision. The round starts with Iris choosing whether to stab Cal in the thigh with an ice pick or to strike Travis 3 times with a whipping staff. Travis tells Iris he'll be okay with 3 whacks from the staff, so he stands up and removes his coat. Bevans shows her how to do it, and then she proceeds and strikes him.
Right.
But Shepard did not count it for being too weak. She does it again, but this time harder, leaving 3 bloody marks on Travis' back. Now it's Lucas' turn. He had to choose between stabbing Iris or striking Travis again. He then explains stabbing someone is dangerous, so he has no choice but to strike Travis. And Travis agrees. Lucas strikes 3 times and Julian seems to be enjoying it. Travis is now the one to choose. He either stabs the one who just whipped him or takes 3 more lashes, this time administered by Bevans. It is now obvious that Julian is behind all this. He doesn't want to stab anybody, so he chooses 3 more lashes. Lucas volunteers to be stabbed, but the Lambricks do not allow it since it's against the rules. After receiving a total of 9 whips on the back, Lucas is concerned about Travis because he looks like he needs some medical attention. But the game goes on. Peter has to decide whether to stab Linda beside him or give 3 more lashes to Travis. Since Travis looks like he can't take any more whipping, and Linda is paralyzed and can't feel anything with her lower body, Peter chooses to stab Linda with the ice pick. Thinking he hit an artery, Peter ties his belt in her leg. Linda now has to make her choice between whipping Travis again or stabbing Amy. She chooses to grab the ice pick and stab Amy. She then hits her face in return. Now that it's Amy's turn, Shepard changes the options. She could either whip Travis or stab any player of her choosing. She reminds her co-players that the game is about eliminating others, not helping each other out. Amy stands up and decides to stab Iris, but before doing so, she asks Shepard if she could stab anywhere. He answers only from the shoulders down. She immediately stabs her on her side, leaving her in great pain. Outside the room, Dr. Barton tries to get in the house through the basement. In the dining room, Bevan checks if Travis is still breathing. He reports to Shepard that he still is. Peter then informs them that Linda has not moved for a while, so Bevan checks and says she's dead. Now Cal is the one to make a choice, finish off Travis or stab Lucas. Thinking Amy was right, Cal decides to whip Travis to eliminate another player. Shepard asks Bevan how long Travis can last. As per Bevan, he's not in shape to play the game any longer. So Shepard decides to move him out and eliminate him from the game. While Shepard and Bevan are talking about the next round, Lucas asks Iris if she can run and she nodded. He then signals and all of them attempt to escape except for Amy. Cal uses the whip on one of the guards while Lucas attacks another guard. Iris used the ice pick to stab one of the guards, giving her an opportunity to run. Julian, on the other hand, hides under the table. Cal tries to get close to Shepard to whip him, but he shoots him. They have no choice but to go back to their seats and proceed with the game. But Julian notices Iris is missing. Shepard sends Bevan to find her and Julian follows. Iris is still in the house looking for a way out. While she was about to go out a window, Julian grabs her and forces himself on her, but she bit his hand and stabbed him with the ice pick. Finally, Dr. Barton sees Iris and says he'll get her out of there. But Bevan suddenly shoots him. Julian asks him to shoot Iris too, but he refuses and says she needs to go back to the game. So once again, Iris is back at the table. When asked what took so long, Bevan informs Shepard that his son tried to rape her. Iris looks for Cal, but Peter says they shoot him. Shepard returns and apologizes to Iris. He blames it on his lack of motherly care. The next round is about to begin, but Amy objects and says Iris should not play anymore, to which Peter agrees, but Shepard says it's his game and he allows Iris to still participate. He then explains the mechanics of the third round, a choice between the known and the unknown. Known is being submerged in a barrel for 2 minutes, and the unknown being the punishment written inside the card given to them. Again, they will only have 30 seconds to decide. The first one to play the round is Peter, and he chooses the envelope with a symbol that means he has to light up a firecracker in his hand. Peter was relieved, but then he finds out he'll light a quarter stick. Bevan secures it to his hand with duct tape. He lights the firecracker and it explodes in his hand. He falls to the ground and seems to be having a heart attack. When Bevan checks, he says he's dead. Lucas is next. Thinking he won't last underwater, he chooses the card that shows an eye. He has to slit open his one eye. Unwilling to do it, Shepard gives him a choice whether to do it or Bevan will kill him. Left with no choice, he did it anyway.
All die!
Unwilling to gamble, Iris chews the barrel over the envelope. Shepard begins the timer and Bevan submerges her underwater. She thinks of her brother and uses it as motivation to survive. She struggles, but Bevan holds her tighter. Finally, after 2 minutes, she survives. Lucas is glad and Shepard is impressed. Good thing she didn't choose her card, because when they checked it, it showed all teeth were to be extracted. Amy chooses her card and it shows a barrel with a number 4, meaning she has to go under the water for 4 minutes. When the timer starts, Bevan submerges her in the water. Not long after, she struggles and eventually stops moving. For the last round, Iris was asked to sit across Lucas. Before starting the round, Shepard commends the two and says their game was one for the books. The first one to play the round has the advantage, so they will flip a coin to decide which one will be first. Heads for Iris and tails for Lucas. Bevan flips the coin and it shows heads for Iris. The final question for Iris is, would you rather end the game where she and Lucas are free to leave, empty-handed but alive, Or would she eliminate Lucas with a pistol? Lucas then talks to her and says they can end the game now. He begins sharing why he came to the party, but Iris pulled the trigger and killed him.
Sister.
Shepard and the guards applauded, and she was declared the winner. She was given a bag of money and was also informed that they have already found a suitable donor for her brother. Iris arrives home and checks on his brother, who is in his room. She cleans herself and checks her brother again, but she then discovers he has taken his own life by drinking an excessive amount of medication while she was gone. And that's how the film ends. For more movie recaps like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell as well so that you are notified on our next uploads. Thank you for watching.